Rappers and music producers, let's talk about building sustainable relationships that actually last in today's music industry. Let's talk about it. Music producers and rappers, what's going on with you? Happy Wednesday to you. Today, what I want to discuss with you is a topic that I get in many different versions when I go check the Curtspiration suggestions, which, by the way, curtiskingbeats.com/Curtspiration. I answer your question if you put it down there. But many questions kind of circulate around the same idea and the same concept of how do I build relationships within the music industry? There's many different videos out there that tell you, just make sure that you're not going in there and asking for people. I've made some of them where they say, don't ask for people, but that doesn't go too deep into it, right? There's certain concepts like, you got to show up to the places that people are actually at and, make your presence known. There's so many different strategies, but here's the thing that I think always gets overlooked. And this is the one thing I feel like is most important when building relationships. Who you're building relationships with. Now, immediately, when most producers and rappers think about who they're building relationships with, they're thinking about other rappers and other music producers that are more famous or have more of a following. They're like, oh man, I went to Logic's show when I got his email and he was like, yo, your beats are dope. I holla at you. I built a relationship. That's cool, and maybe you can't see that as a relationship, but have you ever asked yourself, and I've asked myself many a times, in an industry where artists come and go every other year, in an industry where, one crazy thing happens and somebody's career is completely over, one beef and a career is completely over. Is it better to build relationships with them, those folks that are victim of that, which are artists and producers, are the people who are going to be here regardless of what happens to those artists? Those being the people that are behind the scenes, those that own the labels that they own, all those that are managers, those that are, tour managers, those that are PRs, those that are A&Rs. It's crazy. I've met so many people in this music industry when I was actively pursuing placements, and so many of them started off maybe as a blogger, and then they get hired on a bigger blog, and then that blog shuts down, and they get hired on to a media publication, and then that thing gets shut down, and then they go move on to some completely different entity within the major label infrastructure, and then they have a job there. Now they're actually listening to submissions and deciding who to present as a possible person that gets signed. Those are the people I think are best to build relationships with, because they are career I guess employees of the industry. Those are the ones that I've had people that had a small little Tumblr page, right? And then they built it up and they kept writing, and then they end up being a writer at a major magazine. But because I built my relationship with them, sort of the sustainability of my relationships, the longevity of my relationships, they lasted as long as these people have lasted in the industry. And their industry livelihood is a lot longer than their lifespan in terms of being in the industry. It's a lot longer than most rappers and producers. It's funny. I heard Postman say it last week that, rappers have a shorter career span than football players. And it blew my mind because it's the truth. A lot of rappers come here and they have one song or two songs or one album that makes a tremendous impact, and then labels are all strategizing to find somebody who's going to be the answer to that artist, and then that artist, they put out one dud song or one dud collaboration, one dud verse, one dud album, and then they kind of fall off to the wayside. And then that person gets replaced with the new version of them, the 3.0 version of them. And then it keeps going like that. And that's just sort of the tradition of the creatives in the industry. Now, I'm not saying don't build relationships with the creatives. Obviously, building relationships with the producer or a rapper could be the reason why you get invited into the studio in the first place. But what I'm saying to you is this, there's many times that we think that we're building with an artist, and the artist says, man, yeah, I would love to get on this beat, or I would love to get on this song with you, man. This song is going to be a big deal. And then you never hear from that artist from like another 6 or 7 months. And then you decide, you know what, I'm just going to mix this song. I can't get a hold of him. I'll put it out. Put the song out, go to the blogs with it, and all of a sudden the blogs have to take it down because the label said, we didn't clear this and you cannot put this song out there. All of a sudden you can't even have the song on your SoundCloud and you can't even share it nowhere else because the labels are flagging it wherever it goes. Why? Because in that situation, the label was a decision maker. Do not get stuck trying to network with people who are not decision makers. If you can, access the decision makers, because at the end of the day, they decide what goes and what doesn't go. You may think that these artists or these producers have power because they have the name. No. They are the mascot of a business. You know, they are literally the mascot of a business. Just because somebody, going around here, in a Detroit Piston, how do I put it? Mascot uniform does not mean that they own the team. That sounds ridiculous. But we do that so many times, and we think about rappers and producers who are the mascots of their business, of their brand. But in all actuality, there's a business, there's employees behind them that they are not in control of. Somebody else who's cutting the checks is in control of, and everybody is focused on pushing this person forward because it pays all the bills of the people around them. So I must encourage you. Build relationships with artists, especially if it's on a creative level, but build relationships with these professionals who are behind the scenes, because here's the thing about it too, is that when it comes down to the business end of things, you can end up shooting yourself in the foot by going into a relationship with the artist or a producer thinking that they have your financial needs at their forefront, when in all actuality, it's like, no, I have a business and I'm just worried about my art, right? Then you go to somebody else who is a manager or somebody who's a label owner, and you go to them trying to have an art conversation, and then you're not on the same page. Here's the thing about it. Stop having business conversations with artists and having artist conversations with businessmen. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot every time, because you're going to go in there as an artist with a very emotional connection. Like, oh man, I'm glad that you love my art. I'm glad and this other person is like, yeah, you're dope, but I'm still going to get more in this situation financially than you are. So making sure that if you're not speaking that language to the people who speak business, find somebody who does speak that language. If you're talking to an artist and you're trying to talk business with them, most of them are not even aware of their own business, where they're just like, yeah, for sure, man, just holler at my manager. And then that's when things start to get a little bit sketchy, because the manager is the one who ultimately determines the business of that situation. So, basically what I'm saying, oh my God, please ignore me scratching my nose. My nose hairs have been growing like crazy. Too much business. But stop going to the people who are not decision makers and letting them basically alter the way that you do things, because you did not go to that relationship to begin with from a proper place. So when you're going, like I said, once again, when you're going to the artist, speak the artist language to them. When it comes to that business, speak to the businessmen about the businesswomen, about the business at hand. And you won't have situations where you feel like you're getting used, or situations where you feel like I'm not really building a relationship with this person. Yeah, you're right. You're not building a relationship because it's not on common terms. It has not been established, and it's not clear in terms of where you two are going to meet. And you're literally not speaking their language. So be clear who you're talking to. You want to build relationships. Be genuine with people. Stop treating them like numbers. Stop treating them like, oh, this person has 100,000, followers on Twitter. I need to make sure that I come in contact with this person. Stop treating them just as numbers, and you'll start to see the dynamic and the quality of your relationships change. And also, too, one last thing about relationships: act like you've been there. Act like you're going to come back. A lot of you act like, when you meet somebody for the first time, this is going to be the last time. Well, if you're doing your job, and if you're an active participant in the industry, you're going to see this person again. That's just a byproduct of you working, right? But so many times you get artists who are like that one video where the lady was like, oh man, told Kanye, she's like, please sign me, man, please sign. Act like you've been there, man. You will see these people again, and they will see you. And even if they didn't make a great impression the first time, they're eventually going to be like, man, I've seen you before. Man, you were in that studio session. What do you do? And that is your opportunity to build on a very common ground, and even a level ground of respect. So just understand who you're talking to when you're approaching these people. Understand that, certain people just speak a different language, and in the midst of it, don't get your feelings hurt. Once again, it's another Curtspiration Doodle. You need some more of this juice, please subscribe to the channel below. Be a part of the notification gang. If you have any suggestions for a future Curtspiration, go to CurtisKingBeats/Curtspiration. I will get to your question as soon as possible. My book, The Prosperous Hip Hop Producer, is available now. These are stories, these are anecdotes. They are definitely some Curtspirations, but more so stories that really show you the journey of how I went from my grandmother's patio making beats on a PlayStation to a six-figure business that is CurtisKingBeats.com. I would love to tell you my journey. I would love for you to get inspired by it and build your own empire. Now, going back to the topic at hand, when it comes to building relationships, speak the same language and you'll get the right results. A lot of times we speak different languages and we get the wrong results, and we get bitter about the industry. We think people are trying to do us wrong, and it's like, no, they showed you who they were from the very jump. You know what I mean? If somebody wants that money, they are giving you clues in the very beginning. Just understand who you're talking to. Also, when you're building relationships, stop looking at people as numbers, and you'll just have a much smoother ride. Now, things will still happen, but at least you'll have a clear conscience as you go forward. In this life, you will not be full of life until you decide to live life to its fullest. Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com.